Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas.
Hello, welcome back to the Online Great Books podcast, and today Scott and Karl continue their discussion on Plato's Greater and Lesser Hippias. Make sure you caught part one. We pick up right where we left off. Thanks for listening.
We were talking on my Telegram chat about the Amish and the Mennonites and the Hutterites and all those weird Anabaptists that shun, Somebody said, do they have a fine art tradition? No. I mean, mostly.
Not that I'm aware of.
Mostly, no. But they might make a hell of a figwood spoon. The fineness of the workmanship and the fitness for the job might make it a collector's item. Like shaker chairs, shaker furniture. The real deal is highly prized and admired by anyone that cares about stuff like that. The form follows the function with those things so closely that they are fine and would probably command a higher price than a like weight in gold would.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. We went to the Shaker Village. We've gone a couple of times in Kentucky. I think there's like 3 Shakers left. Or hardly any left because they didn't have any kids and they don't proselytize, which is a rough thing on your religion. So memo, if you're going to start a religion, it ought to promote childbearing of those in your religion. And I remember the buildings were just fantastic. They had separate entrances for the men and the women.
So what you're saying is separate entrances for the men and women are fantastic?
No, not necessarily. I'm not opposed to having the men and women be on their own sides in church. I think that's appropriate. Because otherwise,
my wife's a distraction.
It can be a distraction, and I think they know it's a distraction. But I remember this building. It's like a 4-story building. It's in Kentucky. It's hot. It's perfectly cool in the building. So they have all these windows set up just perfectly, and they have I don't know what you call it, the opening at the top. So the hot air goes up, and it sucks in air through the sides.
A cupola.
And it was very well done. Executed perfectly. The stairs I have pictures of the stairs. I guess I would call them beautiful, but it's a beauty that reposes entirely in their function.
And the care with which they're made, too. Right? The workmanship plays in there, too, somehow. I can't figure it out.
Well, it gave me quite a bit of pleasure just to look down a few flights of their stairs. It's weird. It's not just appropriateness, but it was completely and fully appropriate. But then there's times when, Grace Kelly, I'm not thinking of appropriateness. I'm just thinking she's beautiful.
I don't know. Right, well, yeah, but she's also appropriate Princess of Monaco.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. One of them. 291D. Anyway, Socrates doesn't know how to define things, Karl. All of this stuff's because he doesn't accept the idea of a definition.
Well, none of the definitions can hold up.
Right. Yeah, I had a guy on a Telegram call-in show thing I did the other day. He's like, I'm a linguist. I'm like, I'm going to block you because you guys are the problem. Socrates deals with all these problems of language mapping onto reality ad nauseum 2,600 years ago or whenever it was for 1,800 pages here in this book that we still have. And these linguists don't read Cratylus or anything. They're just swinging and missing. Anyway, he dealt with it a long time ago. Anyway, Hippias 291D. Hippias says, the fine is the sort of thing that will never be seen to be foul for anyone, anywhere, at any time.
Right.
Seems right.
Yes, but does it ever exist in reality? So right after that, he gives an example of what he thinks is fine. It's always finest both for every man and in every place to be rich, healthy, honored by the Greeks, to arrive at old age, to make a fine memorial to his parents when they die, to have a fine grand burial from his own children. This sounds pretty good. That's what everyone would consider to be fine. Well, it's not what the gods would think to be fine. It turns out it's not universal. Would it be fine for Achilles? Would it be fine for him to be buried after his parents? No. It's what Hippias thinks. That's what everyone would think is fine. Well, no, not everybody would think is fine. So that leads to another problem. Is it possible we're arguing over nothing?
That's what my wife always says.
That we're arguing over nothing?
Well, that Socrates is just making much out of nothing, and he's a pain in the ass, and all that.
He is, in fact, that.
He is.
Well, so it might be that it's just custom. This is at 294D. Shall we agree to this, Hippias, that everything really fine, customs and activities are both thought to be and seen to be fine always by everybody, or just the opposite, that they're unknown, and individuals in private and cities in public both have more strife and contention about them than anything. Much more the latter, Socrates. They're unknown. It might be that there isn't any such thing.
Well, it could be, convention, especially if the convention has arisen because of fitness.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. What's at stake? What if we can't come up with a definition of the fine and it's all just custom?
What's at stake?
Yeah, what's the downside? So go back to my Brittany Spears example. It is the custom to take good-looking young girls and use them to make lots of money by having them do videos with snakes and little short Catholic schoolgirl outfits and all of that. So, so they'll have many, many imitators. I remember, did you ever see Mean Girls?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know of it, yeah.
One of the Mean Girls has this younger sister, and there's just this scene where she's coming out to go somewhere, and the younger sister's in the living room watching television, working out the dance to My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard.
Oh, no.
And they just pass on it, don't notice it. It's a subtle little comment, I think, in the movie, that something might be wrong by promoting those things as fine. If fine is just custom, I don't know. I think some of those customs are bad. And if it's just custom, we don't really have any way to argue our way out of it.
Well, that becomes relativism,
Mm-hmm.
Make it your custom, and then it becomes fine.
Yeah, and it seems that all of the customs tend to make somebody a lot of money.
So you mentioned Mean Girls. Yeah. I love Clueless.
I had forgotten. I love it as well.
Yeah, we may have to do that. We may have to do that one. We may have to read Emma and then watch that and do a show.
It's the best Jane Austen.
And the best Alicia Silverstone.
That's a high bar.
Did she do anything else? I don't know. I think she did the Lolita movie, didn't she? Didn't she do the Nabokov thing?
No, I don't think she was in that. She did a movie with Carrie Elwes where she played that role. I think she played that role a lot when she was young.
Yeah. She didn't have to act. Didn't have to do anything. Just they're like, the director's like, go be Alicia, please.
Mm-hmm. She's in a Hallmark movie that she dies in. Spoiler.
Oh, no.
I watched it, and I told my family, don't watch this one. It's too sad. And they watched it anyway.
Oh, man. Listen to this. 2004, Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. 2001 through 2003, she was on the TV series Braceface. Never heard of that. Of course, she played Batgirl in 1997's Batman and Robin. Oh, she was in True Crime. Yeah, I remember that. Clueless, of course. Gosh, she's got a ton of stuff here. Ton of stuff.
Candles on Bay Street, I think, is the one for the Hallmark movie.
She was in 2 Aerosmith videos. She was on the TV series Wonder Years. Huh. Good for her. She's a little weird now.
Well, Hollywood child star.
Yeah. I think she's one of those like family bed people that like chews up the food and spits it in the kid's mouth and that kind of stuff.
Mm. Have you seen what happened? Speaking of child stars, have you seen what's happened to Brendan Fraser?
He got old like all of us do. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. There's just a meme going around with a picture of him from The Mummy and then a picture of him now. And it's just horrifying.
His head has continued to grow.
As has mine.
Yeah, he's got a huge head. What about Val Kilmer?
He's got big health problems.
He's one of the prettiest guys I ever did live, and it's been rough on him. He does. What's wrong with him?
I think he's got some throat problems. I think he might have had a tracheotomy or something.
Oh.
I love that movie, Tombstone.
Tombstone's wonderful.
I'd say it was a guilty pleasure, but I don't feel guilty.
No, my oldest daughter and I have watched it many, many times.
Do you say the lines to each other?
Oh, yeah. You nerve-wracking sons of bitches, like playing cards with my sister's kids or something. That's the best line in the whole movie as far as I'm concerned.
I like Frederick effing Chopin.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty funny. I don't know. Thumbs up to Tombstone. Well, let's see. So Hippias complains about his method at 301b. But Socrates, you don't look at the entireties of things, nor do the people you're used to talking with. You people knock away at the fine and other beings by taking each separately and cutting it up with words. Because of that, you don't realize how great they are, naturally continuous bodies of being. Now you're so far from realizing it that you think there's some attribute or being that is true of these both, but not of each, or of each, but not of both. That's how unreasonably and unobservantly and foolishly and uncomprehendingly you operate. You're missing the point. Things are continuous wholes, and you're trying to carve them up and find out little bits.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the Hippias here at 301b. This comes out in every seminar group at some point during their Plato time. Somebody says, Socrates is missing the point. He's playing word games. The stakes are higher than this. He's a pain in the ass. Why are we reading this? Right?
Right. The why you're reading it is... I was given the Brittany Spears example. You might go far wrong dealing with things as continuous wholes that, meanwhile, make you a ton of money, and never just chopping it out and saying, well, is this good? Well, what is the good? Does this fit in the category of the good? I guess that's hair splitting.
So what you're saying is you're a team Free Brittany?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Apparently she's a Latin mass goer now. Which is interesting. Go, Brittany.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And Hippias ain't wrong, by the way. Some things are wholes or entireties, naturally continuous bodies of being. Some things are. But not everything is. I wanted to talk about 296 in you and his paradox of errors. Socrates says, then is ability fine, but inability foul? Hippias, very much so. Many things give us evidence for the truth of that, especially politics. The finest thing of all is to be able politically in your own city, and be unable is the foulest of all. Good, Socrates says. Then doesn't it follow from these points that, by God, wisdom is really the finest thing of all, and ignorance the foulest? Hippias, what are you thinking? Socrates, keep quiet, my friend. I'm frightened. What on earth are we saying now? Why should you be frightened now? The discussion has gone really well for you this time. Socrates says, I wish it had. Look this over with me. Could anyone do something he doesn't know how to do and isn't able to do? Not at all. How could he do what he isn't able to do? Then when people make mistakes, do bad work, even when they do it unintentionally, if they aren't able to do things, they wouldn't ever do them, would they? That's clear. But people who are able by ability. I don't suppose it's by inability. Of course not. And everyone who does things is able to do the things he does. Yes. And all men do much more bad work than good, starting from childhood, and makes mistakes unintentionally. That's right. So, we don't call that ability and that sort of useful thing fine, do we? Yeah, how do we do the things that we don't know how to do?
Or do we do them willingly or unwillingly, which would get us into the second dialogue.
Yeah.
So it couldn't just be able or useful. That's not enough to be the fine, because you could be able or useful for doing bad things. So we get in 296E. Then here's what got away from us. The able and useful without qualification is fine. And this is what our mind wanted to say, Hippias. The useful and able for making some good. That is the fine.
Yeah.
It's not just to be useful. It has to be connected with the good. You know, I can make a lot of money with this 18-year-old Mickey Mouse girl. I am able to do many things with her. Great. Are you able to do things for good?
What's that?
Must be money.
Why don't you know I'm the greatest producer ever? Look at how much money I've made.
Should we skip into a little bit of the Lesser Hippias?
Yeah, this one's a big, big problem. This one deals with a problem that I have dealt with a lot and don't have an answer about. Here's my formulation of the problem. I've talked about this and bitched about this for a long time before I'd ever read Lesser Hippias. It goes like this. If someone utters a falsehood or acts based on a falsehood, well, if two people do this, one of them doesn't know he is acting on a falsehood or is uttering a falsehood, and the other one does know he is uttering a falsehood. Which is the better person to deal with?
Well, the one who knows that he's uttering a falsehood is probably smarter.
Could be, but maybe not. Maybe one of them's just misinformed and is a young yet, or who knows. I think that we could say that the person who doesn't know he's telling a falsehood could be virtuous. But the person who knows he's telling a falsehood is certainly, in that respect, not virtuous. But on the other hand, the person who knows that he's telling a falsehood, he and I both know the truth, and we share something common in that way. And the one who doesn't know he's not telling the truth, he and I are at loggerheads, and he knows it, we're at loggerheads, and we're probably going to have trouble. I don't know. I haven't figured it out.
Well, the argument is whether or not Achilles is better than Odysseus.
Right.
And so Odysseus is a famous liar. He's really good at it. Well, I don't know how good he is at it, but he lies all the time, especially in the Odyssey. And Achilles is the straightforward guy who tells you everything he thinks all the time.
Right.
Maybe.
A simple killing machine.
So which one is better than the other? And Hippias, in the speech that we didn't get, I say that Homer made Achilles the best and bravest man who went to Troy, and Nestor the wisest, and Odysseus the wiliest. Which would mean bad. And wily means being a liar. So, well, what do you need to do to be a good liar?
Be convincing in terms of your belief in the lie?
Well, if you believe it, you're not lying.
Wait a minute. Is that right?
You might be mistaken.
The banker says, hey, Karl, you need to buy the biggest house that you can afford. Makes good financial sense. You're using other people's money and inflation and et cetera.
Okay.
And he knows he's just peddling mortgages. He didn't give a shit about you, and we all know the game. And then your boomer aunt says, Karl, you should buy the biggest house you could afford. Interest rates are low. Inflation's going to go up, and that's going to, 20 years from now, your mortgage will be cheap because of inflation, and you'll build all that equity, etc. She believes it 1,000%.
Okay.
They're both telling you a falsehood. Does their intent matter?
Well, I don't know. You're still getting false information, so I guess in that sense it doesn't matter. But the banker knows that he's telling you something false. Your aunt does not.
Right. So who's more virtuous?
Well, your aunt is less smart, apparently, because she doesn't know.
That's not what I said.
Well, virtuous. What is virtue? Which one's more powerful? The one that can lie to you and knows the truth. This is Odysseus. He's able to tell lies because he's got a grasp of the truth, whereas Achilles doesn't know what's going on, at least according to this dialogue.
In the banker boomer ant illustration, I think you'd rather deal with the banker because you say, hey, listen, not interested. I heard everything you said. I looked at the brochure, not interested. Here's what I'm doing. Well, okay. Here's your smaller mortgage. Press hard, 3 copies. Thanks for doing business. Aunt Judy never shuts up about this shit. I told you should have bought the bigger house over there, and you're going to regret that. And look what me and your Uncle Jim did, and look at our house, and we've got that. We're 71. We just got it paid for, but look at all the equity we've got, and you're missing the boat. And why are you living? She'll never stop.
Well, what if she did stop?
Oh, that would be a delight. Boomers never stop, Karl. Let's not talk about fanciful stuff like that.
You'd rather deal with the liar.
Sometimes. I've dealt with liars, particularly in business, and I've pulled them aside, not in front of people, and said, hey, listen, you knock that off. Me and you both know, and I'm just not going to put up with it no more. And then they'll shrug and say, yeah, okay, you're right. It hasn't happened every time. I've done that to people, and they continue to deny it and all that stuff. But you at least have that shot. There's no convincing Aunt Boomer. There's no convincing.
So Socrates says, well then, the liars are among the powerful and the wise. Liars are wise and have the power to lie. In fact, goes further, the best liars are going to be the smartest people.
Yeah.
So, let's see, in math, if you have the most power to tell the truth about calculations, you also have the most power to say falsehoods about calculation. If you don't know how to do math, you might get the right answer by mistake. I was reading a Larry Correa, John Ringo book, and the character in it, I think his name is Chad, believe it or not, gets a perfect C average in high school. He's a genius, but he gets a perfect C average. Do you know how hard it is, he says, to get a perfect C average? You have to get things wrong on purpose. You're only able to do it if you're actually a genius.
I'm a genius.
Is that what you got? A perfect C average?
I don't even know what it was. And in high school, it was like a 1.3.
I was a sucker.
I barely got out.
No, I was a sucker. I got good grades. I worked hard for all the good it's done me. Same thing in astronomy. The good astronomer is going to be the one who can lie. So the same person will be truthful and a liar. And that seems to be the same in all the sciences.
Would you say that the epidemiologist would be the best at lying about epidemiology?
Yeah, if you wanted to really lie about medical matters, you would actually have to know medicine to construct a plausible fake story. Yes, absolutely. So you're now aware then that the same person has been discovered to be a liar and truthful. So if Odysseus was a liar, he also becomes truthful. And if Achilles was truthful, he also becomes a liar. And these two men are not different from one another, nor opposites, but similar. So if Achilles is good at telling the truth, that means he'd be good at lying. And if Odysseus is good at lying, that means he's good at telling the truth. Which is a kind of a strange answer.
Yeah, this is a big problem. Big problem. So you're saying that Achilles didn't lie on purpose. He was also such a cheat and a schemer in addition. So there at 371, Socrates actually shows Hippias that he lied. Where he says he's going to get back in their ships and head back to the fish-filled waters of Greece and never even lifts a finger to drag the boats towards the water or pack up camp. And he lied about it.
Yeah, and Hippias says, well, that's just guilelessness. Well, and if that's the case, Achilles isn't the best because he's dumb. And Hippias had been trying to make the case that Achilles was better.
Mm.
But if he's just saying these opposite things, he just must not be very smart.
Yeah, so, it's a big problem. We're still dealing with it. What's a lie? Is it just an untruth? A falsehood? Is there intent behind it? What is it, Karl?
Well, I think it's one thing to be able to lie, and it's another thing to lie. Those who know the truth most would be the best at lying, for sure.
Yeah, so Hippias there, before we go on to that, Hippias says that it was because of his guilelessness that he said that he was going to drag it up and break camp and didn't. And then Socrates says, okay, wait. Did we just figure out that voluntary liars are better than involuntary liars? That's kind of my problem. Did we just find out that people who lie on purpose are better than people who lie accidentally or incidentally or coincidentally?
Right. And I think the problem here is, I think it's obvious. 375b, he gives an example. For an archer, is it better to possess a soul which voluntarily misses the target or one which does so involuntarily? Yes. Well, it'd be better to have it be voluntary. The problem is if you're trying to define all of this only with reference to the self, it's not going to work. So we get something added on the next page. So this 375c. Would we not wish to possess our own soul in the best condition?
Yes. Socrates then says, so will it be better if it, meaning a soul, acts badly and misses the mark voluntarily or involuntarily? Hippias, it would be terrible, Socrates, if those who commit injustice voluntarily are to be better than those who do it involuntarily.
But nonetheless, they appear to be, at least given what's been said. Hippias doesn't want to go there.
Me neither.
No, me neither. Well, maybe the answer is if we start talking about justice, because we haven't really yet.
Yeah.
So if justice is the power of the soul, isn't the more powerful soul the more just?
It appears so.
So what we really want to have here is, I'm going to go to the conclusion here, 376b. The more powerful and better soul, when it does injustice, will do injustice voluntarily, and the worthless soul involuntarily, apparently. And isn't the good man the one who has a good soul, and the bad man the one who has a bad soul? Yes. Therefore, It's up to the good man to do injustice voluntarily, and the bad man to do it involuntarily. That is, if the good man has a good soul. But surely he has. So the one who voluntarily misses the mark and does what is shameful and unjust, Hippias, that is, if there is such a person, would be no other than the good man. And we end up with a bad conclusion, a conclusion we don't want. So where have we gone wrong? Have we gone wrong? And the note I wrote to myself is you can't define good simply by the self. You can't define it simply by power. You're better because you're more powerful, because you're capable of telling lies. Because if you do that, you end up with Odysseus being the hero and the best character, because he's the most powerful, because he can keep all the lies straight and tell a bunch of them.
Checks out.
Yeah, so I think the problem that this dialogue is pointing out, which Socrates never puts completely in words because you're supposed to figure it out for yourself, is that there's something wrong with looking at goodness as simply power. Capability. Just like we were talking about in the last one. The fine has to have something with appropriateness. Doesn't it?
Seems like it.
Well, similarly with power, I think, with the ability to do things. So, what you're saying, Karl, is that if you were, for example, to examine the fitness of countries and you were solely to look at their economic output, that might not be the greatest way to do it. You're going to end up with the ludicrous conclusion that the man who does evil willingly is better than the man who does evil by accident. Which is a ludicrous conclusion, isn't it?
Yep. It can't be right. It doesn't jive with our experience.
No, and the reason we got there is because we were thinking in terms of power.
So we're back where I was saying. No, Socrates is where I was describing the lying banker and misguided Aunt Boomer. He would say it would be better to deal with that banker. That's the conclusion they drew here.
It might be better to deal with the banker, but your aunt loves you.
Not in this respect. I mean, Socrates would probably say something like, well, to love someone, wouldn't that be to render the good to them?
Right, but her flaws are from ignorance, not from malice.
All you know is everybody's telling you to borrow a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so terrible. Back when I, played regular business, I just ran into this all the time. It's so difficult. And then there are shades of people who tell mistruths who don't know they're mistruths. Or mistruths, misstatements, or whatever, errors of fact. If I've got something wrong and you tell me I've got it wrong, I'll probably come off of it and correct myself. Probably. But then there's the true believer, though, and then you can't do anything with them. Nothing. We've all said things that weren't true, but that we thought were true. And then, every doctor in the 80s that tried to run fish oil down your neck. But some of them came off of it and some of them didn't.
The ignorant are hard to deal with. The powerful but lying are hard to deal with. Are they the only two options?
I don't think so. I mean, there's the ignorant who are considered in their ignorance. Maybe they don't have all of the information, or their knowledge of the thing's incomplete in some way. Let's just leave it at that. And then there's ones that are just willfully ignorant. This is the way it is. Period. The end. They've jumped to a conclusion. They didn't consider all of the information they themselves had, let alone any information that you may have for them, and that person can say the most absurd things and pass a lie detector test.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man.
So I think when you read Socrates, he's wrestling with problems which haven't gone away.
Nope.
Is knowledge the same thing as virtue? I think it is, with apologies to Hippias, I think it is an advance when some of the things that Aristotle says about the appetites. What's going to make the powerful guy tell lies? What's going to make Odysseus tell lies is because he wants something that you have, and he's going to get it from you with the lie. And the appetites aren't necessarily rational. So he's powerful enough that with his mind, that he can tell you false things and get you to believe them. But the reason he does it is because, he wants to sack your city.
Oh, Odysseus.
Rascal. And that's where I think the question could be answered. The reason most of you, dear listener, would value the well-meaning aunt who gives you crap advice is because she's well-meaning. In other words, you think her appetites are better, even though she doesn't know what she's talking about.
And how.
Yeah. So I get from these two dialogues that they're making you ask all the questions to figure out what is fine and to figure out what makes a good person, whether the liar is better than the non-liar. I guess in some way, yes, but most of us don't want to say that. And that you get done with the dialogue and think, well, why don't I think Odysseus is better than my aunt? And then you have to think through it. Intention matters. Well, intention for what? And then you get into all sorts of interesting questions about the nature of the good and the final end of man, and whether your aunt really wants you to reach the final end, and whether Odysseus cares.
I just had an awesome idea.
Uh-oh.
In my new zine, I think it's going to be called The Enclave, because that's where we're going to be. I think I need a column, an advice column from Auntie Boomer. And it's just boomer advices.
Okay. Well, you would have to sign up for that, dear listener.
Yeah.
To get that.
You could write in and ask whether or not you should, so you can describe having some trouble with your spouse, and I'll tell you, well, you're just not feeling it anymore. Leave them. Get divorced. There's somebody else out there for you. You deserve to be happy. The kids will be better off if the parents are not fighting. That's what I'll say. Stuff like that, boomer stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like, oh, well, college is expensive, but student loans, you can defer those, and it'll be the best time of your life anyway. Go date a lot of people, sleep around a whole bunch, try out a lot to find out what you like sexually before you settle down. Stuff like that. I'll give a lot of good advice like that.
Oh, sure.
Ask Auntie.
Sure.
It should just be all boomer advice.
Yeah.
Stock market always goes up. Always goes up. That's where you need to be.
Jesus doesn't care if you dress up for church.
Oh, yeah?
That's boomer advice.
It is?
I think so. It's boomer church advice.
Well, that's true.
Don't get me started. The boomer church.
Listen, Karl, all the four Gospels just boil down to be nice. Don't suck.
Right. Be nice and go into debt.
Right. Don't suck as a person.
Yeah. What are we going to read next? So this is the way Plato is. Plato is it sparkles and it's frustrating, and you get done with it and you have more thoughts than you had when you went into it, which is why we read it. Not all of the Platonic dialogues are this negative.
Yeah. A lot of them are, though. You read them and you're left with nothing or something you didn't want.
Right. So in theology, we have something called apophatic theology. It means you are taking things away. It means you look at the divine and you're not sure what God is, and so you say, well, God isn't this. Yep. God isn't that. And it feels like nothing, but it's not. It's actually purification. So you don't think like those stupid paintings of the old guy with the white beard. That's not the reality. And so they say, well, God isn't that. And this is similar to that in that you think, well, what is the beautiful? What is the fine? Well, I don't really know. But it's not this thing. And so learning what things are not, actually, it feels negative, it feels worthless, but it's getting you closer to what they are. If I quit screwing up, I'm closer to not screwing up.
I'll take it.
And you can do that with any of the big topics that he talks about. People get frustrated with Socrates. They think he's a smart ass. I guess so. Although I think he's in earnest. I think it's other people's problems.
I do too. I think he's earnest too. Oh, it does come off as, snarky. Oh, you're so wise. Please tell me what justice is.
Well, if you read it that way.
Isn't that what it sounds like when you read it?
You're so wise. You should tell me what justice is. If anyone knows, you do.
Right. But after him tangling with all of these people for all of these years, he's walking up to another guy and he's like, you smug son of a bitch. He has to be, right?
If he were you, he would be.
And then he says, wow, you're so wise. Please.
But knowing that you don't know stuff is useful. Because then you might keep looking and you may find
absolutely.
It. Or get closer to it. Which I think is the whole point. I think it's a constructive exercise, not a negative one. He's not a skeptic.
Right. He's rented space in my head.
Yep, mine too.
All the time. All the time. I ask myself, well, what in fact is whatever? Fill in the blank. And then I realize I don't know. Happens all the time.
But then you go look.
And then I still don't know.
But you less don't know.
That's right. That's right. And, I think I've said here on the show, I think that, I hate voting because I'm expected to know. And I don't know. Most of the time, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think I do, I probably don't either. And I go and I, put an X in some box.
For other people that don't know.
Right. It's difficult.
If only they knew they didn't know.
Right.
Then we might be getting somewhere.
Those poor dumb smug. You said that you wanted to kick off like that 50-part series on Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morals with part 1, his essay on resentment.
Resentment. Yeah, so we're looking for a book to do next. And I thought Genealogy of Morals by my friend Frederick would be good. I think his insight into resentment is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. I don't know that I want to go every place he goes.
That's always the case with that guy.
But I don't think he's wrong on that.
That's always the thing with him. Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet. How long is that? What have you done to me?
It's not very long. The whole book might be 180 pages, and this is a third of it. So it should be manageable.
Yeah, we'll do that. What translation are you going to be in? You're going to be in your complete whatever you've got?
I could be. I'd have to dig and figure out. It's probably Walter Kaufman, but
I think I have that Kaufman one. Yeah, we'll do that. So, we'll do essay 1 from Friedrich Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morals. That's going to be good. I look forward to that. That's mightily important.
He's a man of power.
Yes, he is.
Even if you don't like where he goes, you'll be smarter for reading what he says.
He's got a little Socrates in him, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Imagine what my brain is like, because I have Socrates and Nietzsche living in there.
Well,
they never give me a moment's peace.
You could have Chomsky living in there and Kant, so you're better. You're fine.
Things could be worse.
You'll live. Chomsky.
These Socrates and Nietzsche are funny.
Oh, gosh. My home book group has been meeting this month, in fact, is our 6th birthday. We started Plato the first year we met, and then, I don't know, spent 8 months with it or something like that. We didn't read all of it. We might have spent a year. I don't know. And I have reread some Plato since then. I've read The Republic several times since then and some other things. But I hadn't read these in 4 years. Whenever I finish anything, a dialogue or a significant chunk, beyond a chapter in like Agatha Christie or something, I write the date in there and I initial it on the end of that. And my home group decided after 6 years, we're going to go back to Plato and Aristotle.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the right thing for people to do. And I read this 2 months ago for my home group. And then I read it again yesterday. Plato, nothing holds up like Plato. It's so good. I mean, you'll say the Iliad, but man, I'm telling you, Plato does it for me.
They're different things. I think if you haven't read your Plato, you might not be a critical thinker. You probably aren't. How's that?
That's some inflammatory talk, but I don't know that you're wrong. That questioning that he does is it's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do anything unless you do that first. And then you still might not be able to do anything.
Right.
That would be good. I'd like more of that.
More not doing anything?
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in not doing anything.
I've been reading about the Mennonites and the Amish a lot, Karl.
Yeah? You going to jump? Will they let you in?
No, I'm no Anabaptist. But, they've got a lot right. There was a Mennonite community, actually an Amish community in southern, kind of southern Oklahoma, that in the 20s and 30s ultimately came to the decision to go ahead and use tractors because it's flint rocks down there, bad soil. they had meeting after meeting, supposedly, and decided at long last, we're going to have to use tractors or we're going to starve to death or we're going to have to leave. So what they decided to do was to use tractors, steel wheels only, because that makes them good for use in the field, but you can't go on the road. And they don't want to go on the road. Well, a few things. They want to make sure that anything that they do, any technology they use, is a tool. And so it's not a luxury, it's a tool. It has to bring them closer to their creator, or at least not farther away. That's going to be hard to prove. And has to increase community. So there are some Mennonites that don't live very far from here that have a payphone in their front yard. They run a bakery. So they can call their suppliers. They can go outside and stand in the rain and make a phone call to, do what they need to do business. But they will not use it to, call grandma or whatever. You're not supposed to get on the phone and call somebody. You're supposed to get in your wagon and go over there. And you get in your buggy or your surrey or your wagon and go over there. Because if it was a car, you could just go over there, spend 5 minutes, and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a BFD to hook the team up and blah, 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 blah.
Do the Mennonites say that?
Oh, yeah.
It's a BFD.
It's a BFD when thee and thine must. I don't know, man. They've got some standards. Whether you agree with how they make these decisions, they don't just say, oh, my gosh, I saw a commercial for it. That's mine. I got to have it. Yeah, they're very, very, very critical and slow to do anything. I love it. I'm trying to figure out how to be more like them. Sans facial hair.
I could do the facial hair.
Yeah, I can't get on board with that. Really? Do it. Shave that mustache off. Just have that chin strap.
No, I just meant grow the whole thing out.
No. The Mennonite thing. You just have no mustaches. It's just the chin strap part. Yeah, no mustache. A great number of the Mennonites in that community were outraged, and they left. I read that recently in a Canadian province, a law was passed that said that school-aged children must be immunized. And the Mennonites said, hey, actually, I think this was an Amish group, I believe, said, not us. And the province said, oh, but the law reads school-aged, not school children, because they don't send their kids to the school. And they won't defy the law. They won't do that. They left. Like, this was like in March.
Where did they go?
I think some of them ended up in Pennsylvania. Some of them ended up in Ohio. Some of them ended up in other provinces. They ain't kidding, man. They left. I think a few remained, but by and large, I think it's like what I read was like 70% of them drug up.
Yeah.
We need some more folks like that.
Yep. I think so. Yeah. Nietzsche's going to be fun. Dear listener, you should go listen to our Music and Ideas podcast.
Yeah, do that.
Speaking of Joe Cocker.
Go do that.
See how I'm tying it all together here at the tail end of this?
Yeah, that's a great segue. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, go listen to that show. We did one not too long ago on Pink Floyd. We did one on a terrible album by Depeche Mode.
It's not terrible.
Trent likes it, and I love Trent, so I listen to it, and I think of him. So it's not, I can bear it. We talked about some Joe Cocker, and we talk about some high-minded stuff on there, too. Go listen to that.
Sure. We got Beethoven. We got a Gershwin episode back there, which I worked hard for. I wish it got more conversation. So go back and listen to that and tell me what you think.
Yeah, go do that. Go to onlinegreatbooks.com and check out what we're doing over there. Go buy a shirt or something. We got some books. I got some books that were shipped to us in error some of them we ordered the wrong stuff, and some of them the Oxford had sent us the wrong stuff, and they said, hell, just keep it. So those are for sale. You can go buy that. You can go buy a Loeb Classic Library edition of Caesar's War in Gaul. So go buy something. That would help us. And then the show after Nietzsche, we're going to do with Thomas Miras of the Catholic Culture Podcast, and we're going to talk about Jacques Maritain and his book, Art and Scholasticism, which I have started and I have enjoyed a great deal. But I've also read on the internet that he was a fast friend of Saul Alinsky, and I'm very confused.
Don't know. We'll find out.
Well, there's the next 4 weeks worth of stuff. So if you want to read along, jump right on in there. The Nietzsche chunk is not very big, and neither is the Maritain Art and Scholasticism. I think you'll like them. And if you're in on the zine, if you want to get that fresh mammography. Wait a minute, mammography? Yeah. Mimeography. Mammography is different. That's where they squeeze your boobs in a camera.
Mm-hmm.
The mimeograph zine. You can go to scotthamburg.com, scroll down to the bottom there and get on that list, and I'll let you know when we kick the door open for that. And we'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks.